Denver, Colorado, the mile-high city, 5,280 feet above sea level. It's also a great sports town. The hockey team just won a championship, the basketball team has a back-to-back MVP, and the football team has a QB who does high knees on the team plane. But Denver also is the home of Coors Field, a place that has a reputation for chaotic baseball games and for being every hitter's dream. It's the place where balls fly and fly and fly. Higher than the plane Russell Wilson is currently doing high knees on.
Told Russell sit his ass down, I'm trying to get some sleep.
Since its construction in 1995, it's been known as the most hitter-friendly park in baseball. It's been given the nickname of Williamsport after the home of the Little League World Series, Coors Canaveral for the balls that get launched into space. The most notable name to come from this Denver stadium is the Coors Field effect. The increased offensive numbers, longer home runs, more runs, the thin air, the advantage. Or is it an advantage? Take a look at the Coors Field Wikipedia page. Before we even see anything about the great baseball feats that have occurred at Coors, we have to read about the unfair home runs. Who cares about Ichiro's 3,000th hit anyway? There's much more to the Coors Field effect than meets the eye. Here's the thing. There is a Coors Field effect, but it's not the one you think it is. Hi, it's Jordan. If you like what you're seeing here today, you're more than encouraged to like, subscribe, buy our merch. Just keep up with everything Stark Raving Sports. Let's get back to baseball. We'll first jump into some science. Don't worry, nothing too crazy. We're talking Bill Nye the Science Guy level stuff here. Bill. We all know that Coors Field sits at the highest elevation in all of Major League Baseball. This means Denver is unlike anywhere else in baseball. The next nearest is Chase Field in Phoenix at 1,100 feet. Quite a difference. At a mile high, the air is both drier and thinner than anywhere else. This allows balls to move quicker and farther. So, there's the explanation for the long ball. MLB knew this when Coors was constructed, so they extended the outfield walls, creating the largest outfield in the league. Even with these adjustments, balls continued to fly for the Rockies and visiting teams. Coors broke the record for most home runs in a season with 271 in 1996, then again in 97 with the current Major League record of 303. 5 years into playing at Coors, the Rockies began to use the humidor to make the ball softer and more comparable to all other parks.
Smooth slider. Oh, yeah, hanging curveball.
This drastically decreased the average home runs to around 200. However, Coors remained an offensive-heavy park. If there's a real offensive advantage at Coors Field, it's in doubles and triples, not home runs. Common misconception there, but think of it like this. The larger outfield allows for more extra base hits, and the infield runs faster than most, proving for more ground balls for hits. The Rockies have finally seemed to realize this, and they stopped putting Charlie Blackmon in his career minus 40 outs above average in the outfield every day. We still love him in Denver, though. It's okay. Looking at the Rockies' home and road splits, you can clearly see the favor in playing at home. Sure, the Rockies themselves have seen an effect of playing at home. That's the one everyone generally has in their head. Here's the thing, though. This also goes for many more teams in the league. ESPN's Park Factor finds there were 15 ballparks in 2022 that favored the hitter. Half the league. Among these are some of the top-performing offenses in the league, all of which have better home numbers than away. So it's not just Coors with an advantage. The Rockies hit better at home because a lot of teams usually do. Saying it's just a Coors Field thing is a myth. We can look at individual players as well. We'll use these four as an example. Just one of these players has spent significant time as a Rocky. I'll give you a second to pick which you think it is. I'll guess that about a fourth of you got this right. Player A is Aaron Judge, player C is Anthony Rizzo, player D is Corey Seager, and player B is Nolan Arenado. Unless you're a statistical expert, it's hard to spot the Rockies player. All of the players on this list have been an MVP finalists in the last decade. Judge has spent his entire career at Yankee Stadium with short porches, Rizzo the same with much time at Wrigley and eventually New York. Corey Seager, on the other hand, played at Dodger Stadium, a known pitcher's ballpark, but still has staggering splits. Then, Nolan Arenado, of course, spent 8 seasons at Coors Field. Stadiums have a big impact. We knew that. But how often do you hear Aaron Judge plays at Yankee Stadium? He has an advantage, or Anthony Rizzo has the wind and ivy at Wrigley to help him. Certainly not as often as you hear Arenado is all Coors. Nothing knocking Judge or Rizzo, of course. They're 2 great hitters of this generation. But the impact the so-called Coors Field effect has on a player is unfair. Let's look a little bit more at Arenado. He's now completed 2 seasons with the St. Louis Cardinals. Following his trade to the Birds, many feared Arenado's numbers would drop when he moved away from Coors to Busch Stadium, a pitcher-friendly park. While yes, his home numbers no longer look the same, his road split improved drastically. In nearly every category, Arenado is now better on the road. How could this be possible? This is because of Busch Stadium, a place that has a giant McDonald's sign Arenado has to aim all his home runs at now, but maybe more so the conditions of playing in Denver. If you've ever visited Colorado, you may have experienced altitude sickness. The high elevation in Denver can cause headaches, fatigue, nausea, and much more. Being a Colorado native, I can't speak too much on experiencing this, but it's a common thing. Now, let's look at the Colorado Rockies. They spend anywhere between 3 and 10 days in Denver, then venture on the road back to lower altitude. Going back and forth, players never are able to adjust their bodies to the altitude in Denver. Even though we goofed on him earlier, Charlie Blackmon is an all-time Rocky. After 12 years in the Mile High City, he knows this situation better than anyone.
It's a drastic difference. Like, the recovery aspect of it is so much harder. You need a couple weeks to become accustomed to that altitude, and we're never there for a couple weeks. Like, right. we come in and then we suck air, for our homestand, and then we leave, and then we come back, and so we're constantly adjusting, and that makes it tough.
Remember when I said the Coors Field effect is more than meets the eye? Well, here it is. These conditions aren't something you necessarily see in these players on the field, but it's a big impact. We've seen Nolan Arenado benefit from leaving Coors Field, DJ LeMahieu, Matt Holliday, just to name a few. How about the opposite? How do players do when they come to Colorado? They often struggle. Let's look at Daniel Murphy. He spent 12 seasons with multiple teams in Major League Baseball. In 2016, Murphy was the runner-up in the NL MVP vote as a National, a strong offensive player. That was exciting for the Rockies to bring him in on a 2-year deal, but he did not live up to that MVP standard. During his time in the purple and black, Murphy batted just .269 with 16 home runs. At Coors, he hit .299 with only 5 home runs. While Murphy was at the end of his career at this time, playing at altitude certainly may have had an impact. So yes, there's a Coors Field effect, a strong one for the players to endure. Signing up to play 81 games a year in Colorado is a tough task. Take it from the players, the Coors Field effect is not all what it's written up to be. We know it is record-breaking home runs, high-scoring ball games, iconic home run derbies, and the ultimate hitter's playground. But for those constantly going in and out of that elevation, subjecting their bodies to the consistent exhaustion is not fun. And we should put a little extra respect on the guys who carved out fantastic careers doing it year in and year out. If we're going to hold guys to a different standard of offensive stats being inflated in Colorado, we should just as importantly think about the physical taxation that offsets that. Looking at all the Todd Helton Hall of Fame voters out here. Maybe, just maybe, the Coors Field effect the average fan perceives is dead. Baseball has evolved, and so has our understanding of what impacts the game. You can say that hitters will always have an advantage in Colorado, but in doing so, you also have to look at the negatives. My goodness, I didn't even get into pitching at Coors. That's just going to have to be another video.